So thank you very much for having me here. It's a great pleasure and honor for me to have this presentation today. And I'm here to talk about new trends of science communication, and particularly science programs for adults in European science museums and science centers. Let me first briefly introduce myself, and there are two organizations that I represent. EXCITE is a European network of science centers and museums bringing together about 400 organizations from Europe and also from outside Europe, and reaching between 30 and 50 million visitors physically every year, and more than that virtually through the websites. And the key activities are the projects which bring together different organizations and facilitate the exchange of ideas and best practices on current issues. The highlight of EXCITE activities is an annual conference held every year in different country, in different city. Next year, you're already invited to the conference in Gothenburg in Sweden. It's a great city on the Baltic Sea. And the topic of this conference will be Dreams, the Spirit of Innovation, which is very much like the topic of today's conference. And Copernicus Science Center is a new science center in Poland. It's a national science center established 2 years ago in Warsaw, with hands-on exhibitions, digital planetarium, laboratories, conference centers, and organizing a big number of programs for adults and also for kids. This is what it looks like, and this is what it looks like when you reach 2 million visitors within 2 years, which is a very good result as for Poland. So I think I will come back to what Elizabeth has been already describing, which is, I think, a kind of shift of paradigms that we have been witnessing for a couple of years, for several years, in science museums and science centers in Europe and also worldwide. And this shift of paradigms comes from, when we look at the museums, we move from collections to focus more on stories and discoveries. Therefore, we are not that much object-oriented as we used to be. We are rather more visitors-oriented. And in programs, it means moving from lecture to dialogue, so from communication to communication with, from guiding to providing with an opportunity to engage, from following to engaging, which is exactly the point, and from presenting the ready-made content to co-creation of the content together with the public. So in political terms, you could say it's like a movement from authority, intellectual authority, to empowerment of the visitors. And I would like to describe this shift of paradigms in 4 arbitrarily chosen areas, which are communication, community building, engagement, and building societal platforms. So let's start with communication. And I would like to introduce you to an interesting concept developed at the Cheltenham Science Festival, which is called FameLab. I think our United Kingdom visitors know it very well. And this is a very successful concept of science communication. Can we please play the movie now?
Hi, good evening. I have very good news. Your cells are dying. They're committing suicide right now. Yeah. Actually, billions of cells will die until you go to bed, and these bad cells will then be removed by your immune system and replaced by fresh and new ones. So yes, our cells in our bodies, they incorporate a suicide program which they can switch on, and sometimes they must, because under certain circumstances, our bodies can profit from the death of single cells. But why? Well, In the course of our lives, our cells here are exposed to a whole series of different factors, like damaging factors, like chemicals or irradiation, that can change the genetic information, resulting in so-called mutations. So our sweet and happy, always cheerful cells begin to change into bad cells, like this one. These bad cells are recognized by our bodies as a threat for them, for the organism, and then the suicide program is switched on. So maybe you can imagine, yeah. In fact, the threat is eliminated, but sometimes under certain circumstances and due to particular disturbances in the cell, such a bad cell cannot activate the suicide program. So in that case, such a bad cell can continue growing and dividing without restriction. And that is the beginning of a tumor, cancer. So it would be good if we could just take such a bad cell here and force it to kill itself again. And that is exactly what we try in our lab. We extract different substances from different natural products like coffee or wine or tea, and substances that can actually force these cancer cells to commit suicide again. So what I usually do in the lab is I just take a substance like this one, and I feed it to these cells. Of course, nicely wrapped, because you want the bad cell to take it up. But once it has taken it, then this substance can, for instance, activate an alternative suicide pathway, which you may imagine can indeed also eliminate the threat. So what we actually want and what we hope is to help with our research to develop new anti-cancer strategies. And by the way, during the last 3 minutes, around 50 million cells have taken their own lives in each of your organisms. So congratulations, and continue with those regulated suicide rates so that indeed, death keeps you alive. Thank you.
So as you see, it's a very simple concept. 3 minutes speech with very simple props that somebody can bring on the stage. And it is already an international contest with 19 countries participating and a big number of researchers, particularly young researchers, explaining their research in this very interesting and very communicating and engaging way. That was the winner of this year edition of FameLab from Austria. And quite similar concept is also known in other European countries, as Germany. It's called Science Slam. It's also popular in some Scandinavian countries, based on very similar idea. A slightly longer presentation, 10 minutes long, and public votes for the best presentation. This one is presented in Museum for Naturkunde in Berlin. And you can have a glimpse how it looks. It's also very informal and very engaging adult public. A slightly different concept and slightly more engaging was developed at my organization, the Copernicus Science Center. We called it Living Library. And that was the topic of this content was human cloning, a very sensitive topic. And the idea was that Living Library was formed not by books, but by researchers, experts in different fields. And public could wander, enter different rooms, and have a conversation with different experts on the same topic. And they had different opinion. Our main visitor, main expert was late Professor Keith Campbell, who actually was one of the researchers cloning Dolly the sheep in Scotland. And that was a very popular and very successful format, allowing public to not just to listen, but also to communicate, to discuss. Another concept also developed in my organization is open-air cinema. It's a seasonal summer event, and screening of different movies preceded by discussions with the scientists, with the researchers. There were two topics with two different years: suspected brain, on brain research, and Cystetropics, which is a paraphrase of Claude Lévi-Strauss' famous book on cultural anthropology. Very successful event again, with a lot of people participating and over 1 hour long discussion. And after this discussion, the screening, most of the films are well known, so the public knows it as well. But it is different after this discussion. The perception is different. And yet, well, now let's move to the area of community building. I think this is very essential, as there's a number of people who want to be in a group, of people who share the same interests or share the same curiosity. And science museums are very good venues to provide it, this opportunity. Transit Venus, if you haven't the opportunity to watch it, it's too late. The next one will come in, I think, 120 or 40 years. So it was the last such event in our lifetimes. And over 500 people gathered together to watch it. And that was preceded by a dance theater, art performance on Transit of Venus. And that's how it looked, a dance theater, inspirational thing. And that is 4 a.m. So a big number of people stayed overnight together, and they really enjoyed being together, building a kind of community because of the astronomy. And of course, another example is Facebook or social media. Same example from Museo Nazionale della Scienza e Tecnologia Leonardo da Vinci in Milan, in Italy. It's a very powerful tool, as Elizabeth already explained. I will go through it very quickly. It really involves and engages people. And museum can develop completely new relationship, new approach to the public with the community. And of course, it's not just the quantity which counts, it's the quality, because this is the deepness of the relationship, the kind of the conversation that fans and the museum can have together. And what is interesting, that the content is usually provided by all sides, by all participants, not just by the museum. And of course, there is a common sense of humor and some songs and science news and films of different kind of social activities together. And this is how it looks. And of course, different science museums have different science, different web pages and social media pages. Engagement, I think this is the core activity, and this is one of the most interesting areas. And one of the interesting concepts was to create a different museum out of the existing museum without changing anything. And this is a difficult thing, but the idea was to develop a different opportunity for visitors to come to the museum, for adult visitors. And it's called, in different museums, it has different names. I'm presenting here an example from Science Museum in London, and it's called Late there, because the museum is open late in the evening. So sometimes it's called after hours, for instance. So it's based on entertainment or edutainment and participation in various kind of activities. So all the museum is open just for the adult visitors. You have to present your ID to prove that you are adult when entering the museum. There are special themed events, and the themes are provoking and interesting, like bioterrorism or identity. And hands-on activities like workshops and talks and discussions, debates are interwoven with visiting of the exhibition. What is interesting, there's a number of visitors who never come to the museum apart from this opportunity. So they take just this opportunity to come to the museum. This is how it looks at the Science Museum in London. Now, another example is Researchers' Night. This is actually a project which is supported heavily by the European Commission, and therefore is organized in 300 European cities on one and the same night every year. This is part of the Marie Curie action. And the objectives are to enhance public recognition of researchers, increase research careers attractiveness, bring together researchers and the public at large, and allow interaction with science and scientists in a relaxed and friendly atmosphere, as well as to show researchers what researchers really do for society in a very interactive and engaging way. And the main message is, it's not allies, it's researchers are among us, are part of the society. Next year, if you happen to be in Europe on 27th of September, and if you happen to be one of those 300 cities, it will be there. Now we can have a look how is it organized in one of the museums. Museums are part of this, not all of the museums, but many museums. And Natural History Museum in London provides a very interesting opportunity for the visitors to be linked with the Large Hadron Collider control room at CERN in Geneva, in Switzerland. And this is the opportunity not just to look at it, but also to interact with scientists, with researchers, ask them different questions about the particles, about antimatter, about what is boson Higgs, and perhaps about the black hole. So any kind of questions that they want to raise, they can be addressed directly to the scientists working there. Very engaging, very interesting idea, slightly similar perhaps to the Intel Fair. It's Makers Movement, which originated in the United States, but it's spreading to many other continents and also to Europe. And I want to present you an example from Newcastle, where there is a museum or science center called Center for Life, focused mostly on modern biology. And they organize a maker fair, which is organized as one of the big events for the maker movement. So what is the maker movement? Let's watch this movie, please.
Maker Fair is a two-day family-friendly event that takes place at Centre for Life and Discovery Museum as part of Newcastle Science Festival.
The sort of great gathering of DIY technologies, so people who make amazing things in their garages, bedrooms, garden sheds and so on. They bring them here, they share things with each other and show them off to the public, let the public play with it, let the public get a taste of making things themselves.
It's really difficult to explain the Maker Fair for people who've never been. It's just totally amazing, over the top.
It's bringing together all the people who like to tinker and do great stuff, whether it's in the garage or the shed or whatever, and bring them all together in one venue. So we cover everything from robotics or electronics, craft, and in some ways it's just a celebration of what everybody's doing.
My name's Packer. I build sculptural kinetic art and I try and interact it in a kind of theatrical performance way. It's my third year here. I think it's a great opportunity to show new work. I just like the people and the vibe, really. It's good.
This particular game is called Angry Snowboarders, and it was made by the 4U youth group who are from Newcastle Deaf Centre. So the 4 young men who are here today, they actually designed, built, and they're running the game today.
This is a 3D printer that takes in ABS plastic, puts it through a heated nozzle and deposits it, and once it's finished printing, you can print out a solid object like this little cup.
I love it. It's getting bigger and bigger, and I'm really excited that lots of people are embracing making and science and technology and just coming and having a fantastic time.
It's incredible. People here are awesome. They're lovely. They're great.
great conversations. People are really enthusiastic and excited about stuff.
Tiny little kids who've been designing things that were quite kind of abstract. Right through, we've had PhD engineers who put some designs up on our board.
Newcastle is one of the great centres of the Industrial Revolution with Stevenson and all sorts of people like that. Sort of great inventors, makers. So it seemed like a natural thing to bring here so that we could link today's makers with the makers of the past in one great city.
So as you see, it's extremely engaging for everybody. Actually, there are no visitors. Everybody's taking part in this, in making things, in tinkering, in different areas of engineering, robotics, science and research, also in arts and science and engineering are actually the same thing in this case. You can have a look here at the geographical spread of visitors to Maker Faire in the United Kingdom. And of course, it has originated in the United States. And there are 2 Maker Fairs in the United States. The large events are held at 2 museums in San Jose, at the Tech Museum, Museum of Innovation in California, and New York Hall of Science in New York, Queens. So there are 2 events associated closely to museums. And actually, they do change the museum field very much. So the makers movement is growing bottom-up so fast that the museums start to reinventing themselves and think about the exhibitions more in terms of a process than a ready-made product. So it's a little bit like a bringing makers movement to the museums. And in Europe, there will be a Maker Faire in Rome. There is already held one smaller in Holland, in Netherlands, in Groningen, and many applications. The green ones are the applications. And some questions. The Economist thinks that the maker movement could change how society is taught and boost innovation. It may even herald a new industrial revolution. And Forbes thinks that many people talk about how small business, startups, entrepreneurs are the true economy, or at least the forces that will move US and the world economies back from the brink. So a lot of hopes are associated with the maker movement. And this little thing is a multi-controller called Arduino, originated in Italy. And this is one of the symbols of the makers movement in Europe, as it allows to build quite complex devices on an open platform using very cheap spare parts. Small thing may change a lot. A different concept, elder than makers movement, but in many kinds similar, has been developed in Warsaw, and I've been organizing this event for the last 17 years. And this is called Science Picnic. It preceded the establishment of the Copernicus Science Center. And this is one-day event, bringing together about 100,000 participants, which is really a lot as for Europe. It's probably the largest open-air event in Europe, with different kind of formats. Hands-on exhibits, science shows and performances, experiments, presentation of R&D, including participation of researchers and a very good opportunity for informal conversation, but also games, contests, and some artistic happenings related to the topic of the Science Picnic. And you can see the atmosphere, sense the atmosphere of it. It's also very engaging, very community building, and very good in terms of communication. This is actually the recreation of the famous experiment from Magdeburg with the with spheres, and making of volcano. This is like a maker movement, building robots. A lot of students build their little devices and they bring it to the science speaking to share it with the public, cleaning the water and some artistic happenings. And 8% of respondents to the survey conducted among the participants of the science picnic, the last science picnic, declared that science is interesting and needed by the society. And this is a significantly higher number than the average number in the society. And quite similar event has been developed in Slovenia, Ljubljana, by Hiša Experimentov, which is a science center, science museum there. It's an international 4-day science festival which takes place on bridges, squares, and streets. A very nice event, very informal. What you see here is walking on the non-Newtonian fluid, barefoot, of course. And the last area I would like to describe is building societal platforms. And this is slightly more complex. And this kind of activities, museum activities, are supported by the European Commission. I would like to talk about 2 projects. One of them is Places project, which is about building platforms of local authorities and communicators engaged in science. And it's focused on developing and strengthening city partnerships. Altogether, we have 67 cities, science centers, museums, festivals, and events. So 67 cities where all those stakeholders are represented. And the main objectives are to establish a common platform, to promote cooperation, to deliver the recommendations on the city of scientific culture, and on science communication strategies to be shared with other cities in Europe, and to create a solid ties between hundreds of cultural and scientific actors, and to structure a lasting community of professionals engaged in science in society issues. So this is very much about structuring the cooperation and not really reaching directly the visitors, but it eventually should help all the stakeholders to reach the visitors more and engage them more effectively. And another example is also European projects coordinated by Excite, which is called KICS, which stands for Knowledge Incubation in Innovation and Creation for Science. This is a 3-year European Commission funded project which has started recently. And this is about incubating science and creativity for innovation, about nurturing youth interest in science through creativity, connecting innovative ideas with businesses and potential investors. And there are also activities focused on young adults. So as you see, there is arts, creativity on one end, research, but also startups. So this is potentially bringing new ideas to the economy. And the goal is to stimulate out-of-the-box thinking. Participants will be encouraged to work together across sector boundaries to stimulate new forms of creativity and socio-economic innovation. In practice, there will be 9 incubators partners established with the help of different stakeholders and 9 incubation modules throughout Europe around a large variety of themes like smart cities or healthy cities or life sciences or sustainable transport and energy. So that's, I hope that gave you an insight into different kind of science engagement and science communication in European science museums and science centers. And I wish you a successful conference. Thank you very much.